investors, and welcome to another edition of 18 Minutes with 180 Markets. And well, friends, there is an expression that the riches are in the niches. But what if I was going to tell you that that niche addressable market can be multiples bigger than people estimate, and that also there is a company out there, Memphasys Reproductive, that has a unique product, late stage approval process in place right now, and it really has the ability to dominate this market and to transform it. And that's what we're going to talk about today with Managing Director Dr. David Alley. And with that introduction, David, welcome.
Thank you very much, Greg. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you.
Great. Hey, David, artificial insemination, when most people think of that market, they think of, frankly, young families that are having trouble having children. But it also applies to animals as well. Can you just talk to us a little bit about the market?
Sure. So the market spreads across the human sector and the animal sector, and Memphasys is working across both. We've actually made some big strides in the human area with our Felix device, which is now clinical trials completed, and we're entering the registration process. We've of late found that the device, quite serendipitously, as is off the shelf, can be applied to the equine market. And we're currently exploring that. We found that the device actually worked in horses, and we're currently in the process of doing a clinical trial to define that, to get publishable data that we can then take to potentially interested parties for licensing or distribution. And we're not too far off completing that trial, but we have completed our human clinical trials.
Right. And so, David, can we just talk about a little bit those trials? So it's been trialed in humans and it's ready for registration, but that the focus is more in the veterinarian market. Is that correct?
No, our focus is definitely, I would say, more in the human market, because I
Okay.
believe that there's probably more return on investment in the immediate future than there is in the animal market. And it really depends on where it's applied in the animal market. If it's for breeding certain types of animals, that's fine. But if it's certainly for the food market and increasing the number of animals available for food resources, then that's, I guess, a step up
Right.
in the animal market.
Understood now. And also take us then through where Memphasys, as you said, where are we holding right now in Memphasys life cycle?
I think that 2024, if I can just take a step back, Greg,
For
was a
sure.
really transformative year for the company. And it was a new management team, a few new members on the board, and we really wanted to reset the company. And we managed to do that in 2024 and produce a whole series of outputs that would feed into this current year, 2025. Now, in terms of our life cycle, I think that last year we took time to set things up. One thing was to complete our human clinical trial, which at the beginning of 2024, Greg, I made a promise to the market that I would do it, went out on a limb, and we did it. And we moved heaven and earth to get there. And we in December we enrolled our last patient and drew a sigh of relief and thought, we've done it, and celebrated, and that had an impact on the share price.
Yes.
And following that major input, we then also explored the equine area with Felix, and then went into this year with a clinical trial. But I'd like to focus on the human area a little bit more. So
Yeah.
our trial is now finished, and we promised to the market that we would have data available in March. And as you can see, it's now March 2025. And in fact, we do have, we're going to use that data to submit to CE Mark for our registration for Felix in human IVF for our sperm separation with our Felix device. And we expect to have that completed by the end of, I think, Q2. And once we do that, I believe the registration process with CE Mark can take 6 to 12 months. And there is the opportunity to expedite that. I think if the regulatory authorities agree and you pay an extra fee. So we're certainly looking at all options, Greg, to expedite every single process we can, because I really want to push this out and get it commercialized and start making some sales in countries that we haven't made before, such as Europe.
Right.
Immediately, we'll be able to have access to Europe, Australia, and then in India as well. So and other small territories that will accept CE mark registration. So I think the transformation for the company has gone from R&D, which we were always known to be doing by our investors,
Right.
and but now we're actually turning that into a commercial process, and that's been our main driving force at the moment is to continue that commercial process and to get return on investment for our investors as soon as we can.
Right. So just so we understand it, there's a registration process that takes place globally, or is that like a what I call like a look through where if they have an approval in Australia, therefore Europe or India will look at that positively?
Yeah, it depends on the jurisdiction and their benchmark for what they'll accept. Now, Australia, I believe, if we have CE mark, it is almost an administrative process. India will, I believe, accept the CE mark with additional, minimal additional work. And the beauty about that in India is that we actually have a waiting clientele who have used the device previously.
Okay.
If I take a step back, we were actually selling in India at one stage, but the regulations changed. So we had to withdraw, and our device needed complete full registration by the CDSCO. So
Right.
once we have the CE mark, we can re-enter the market, and we've actually got clinicians there who write to us probably every quarter asking us when they can have the device again. And so we know that we can immediately get registration in India, we've got a ready-made market there already, so we can go straight in, which is fantastic. Um, the other
Wow.
the other beauty, Greg, is that we are currently selling in Japan, and we were using that as a test market. And the test market was a little slow because clinicians and the company that we were working with, who were a major IVF distributor, basically wanted to see the clinical trial results before. And I guess to me it makes perfect sense. It's a way to manage risk, of the business,
Sure.
and so I'm happy to do that because it was a great opportunity. So we've established a footprint in Japan and potentially a footprint in Canada and New Zealand, who also have low regulatory status for our device. And now that we have the clinical trial data, which we're about to unveil, um, we believe that clinicians and potential global IVF leading distributors will be more than interested in the device and helping commercialize it.
Right. So David, so these results that which are imminent are truly game changing for the company.
It's been a real defining moment for Memphasys, because prior to this we were still doing R&D. We didn't really have a physical product that we could register and sell. And
Right.
now having this data and having great data like we have, which I can probably allude to, um, uh, and explain some of that, I think is really a defining moment for the company, and is a complete game changer, and should see us accelerate, I think, in the next 12 months.
Right. And as far as distribution of Felix, assuming full-on approvals, how do you distribute your product? And is there anything that you're already order, any steps you're already taking?
So we currently have an exclusive distributorship with Vitrolife, who are distributing for us in Japan, and they also have boxes ticked for Canada and New Zealand. So even if we had this product approved, we wouldn't be distributing ourselves. We don't have
No.
the size to do that, and it's probably not our role. So we're more thinking about a number of avenues for the Felix device, and one would be, I think the top on my list would be to sell it to a company that wanted to buy it lock, stock, and barrel.
Right.
The other option would be to do licensing deals either globally or territory by territory. I think that would be also acceptable, where we could do co-branding of the device, and then the company who we're doing the licensing with could then do the marketing and the manufacturing, and we would then get royalties and a sum up front as part of the licensing deal. The third option, Greg, would be to really look at exclusive distribution. Now, that there are pros and cons to that, because even if you have a exclusive distribution agreement in place, it doesn't mean that you're going to get great sales. So I believe that
Right.
exclusive distribution is great, but I think a little bit of competitive tension by not having an exclusive agreement is probably a good thing to have in a market. But having said that, I'm happy to explore all avenues and manage exclusive distribution agreements, to the word of the contract that we sign, in terms of sales and all those sorts of things that we would expect to have out of that agreement.
David, The results are out. They look fantastic. But tell us in layman's terms, how is Felix superior?
Thanks, Greg. Well, our study for a start was a non-inferiority trial. And by saying that, we only had to prove that we were equal to the current processes that are being used globally. That is differential gradient centrifugation and swim up, which are the two accepted processes that are used globally. We didn't have to be better. And our primary endpoint was looking at the embryo utilization rate against those currently used accepted processes with Felix.
Right.
Now, Felix actually had proven to, at the end of the trial, to be superior to density gradient centrifugation, which is a fantastic outcome.
For sure.
And it didn't surprise us, but we're more than happy to take that. And in terms of swim up, which is the other globally used sperm preparation process, we weren't inferior, so we were equal to, which again is actually the result we were actually aiming for. I think that result in itself is a huge and great outcome for the device. The other outcomes is that it's proven to be safe. I believe there were no adverse events, so the device works very, very safely. And it's faster to use than current practice, which again is a huge clinical utility plus for the product in the laboratories where everything is a process and needs to be done quickly. And the other clincher for us was that we did a usability preference study within the overall context. And we found that it was an overwhelming response that Felix was actually the preferable use device from all the other processes that were presented. So again, people prefer to use Felix over using the current accepted procedures. And again, that's another huge plus for us in terms of being able to get a footprint in laboratories because people just love it when they use it.
Yep, absolutely, David. Well, anytime you have something that's faster with better results and better usability, that certainly goes for success. So
Great.
that is great to hear. David,
All
speaking
right.
of sales, and maybe talk a little bit about the product life cycle, the sales cycle, if you will, assuming you get approval, how long, and we certainly know that it's very, very hard to estimate, but generally speaking, what would a typical sales cycle be like?
So if I look at Japan now, we've already got a footprint in the market, and I think that now that we have the clinical evidence and clinical validation, that the acceleration of the sales in the Japanese market will now move forward. In terms of the revenue model for Felix, I think it's a great model. It's a bit akin to the printer and the ink cartridge. So the Felix device has a console,
Right,
and the console is akin to the printer, which is a relatively cheap item nowadays. But the
right,
companies really make their money on the disposable, which is the ink cartridges, which in our case is a single-use disposable cartridge, which only gets used one per sample. And I think it's a great revenue model because once you've adopted the Felix device into your laboratory process,
right,
you're continually paying for new cartridges, and that's where we actually make our money, and that's where the sales are. And that cartridge will be, likely be priced in differently in different territories, I would
right.
expect. And we haven't actually um, got to the point where we've fully explored some of those things yet, so I can't really talk about the overall expectations of pricing at this time. But certainly, I think that it's a good revenue model.
Right. And in manufacturing, would that be done locally?
Yeah, that's another thing. The cost of manufacturing in Australia, Greg, is quite prohibitive,
Yeah.
and I think that that's why a lot of companies move offshore. And we're certainly, if we were to be manufacturing and then supplying to distributors, we would move the manufacturing base offshore, and we've already explored a couple of locations where we can, reduce our cost of goods significantly,
Right.
and by doing that, you can actually lower your overall sale price, still make a good profit, and then get I think it allows you to get a better foothold in the market if you can go in at a reasonable price. So having said that, the device is what I would call a premium device, and
Right.
certainly the company that has already partnered with us in Japan, Vitrolife, they only take on premium devices, and that to us was a good benchmark to know that we were up there and probably, I believe, first in class with our device because as far as I can see, Greg, there's no other device in the market that has the scientific innovation in it that our device has. And one is
Right.
we operate by electrophoresis, which is completely novel, I believe, for the separation of sperm cells and works very well. And that is also coupled with some patented um, size exclusion membranes, which we use to separate the sperm the sperm cells from the semen and all the rest of the
Okay.
debris in the semen. So it's completely novel and it's very fast. So it only takes 6 minutes compared to other processes which are currently used globally, which are 6 minutes to sorry, ours are 6 minutes, but the other processes are 30 minutes to probably an hour long. So
Wow.
again, productivity is huge, and it's been um, widely appreciated by both the Japanese and the Chinese markets who, have used the device and say this is fantastic because, if you look at China, for example, Greg, it's one of the
Right.
largest markets. It's about 33% of the global market. And one clinic in China probably does more IVF cycles than the total of Australia in a year. So
Wow.
you can imagine the size of the market.
Right. And then also that, changing from 6 minutes from 30 minutes rather down to 6 minutes, it just feeds through the chain there as far as how much value is
Oh,
added.
absolutely. It's efficiency, and not only that, Greg. It's not only efficiency. It's the quality of the sperm that's produced, but also the operators for the device don't have to be extensively trained like they are in the current processes. So we can actually use, instead of using an andrologist or an embryologist to do the process, you could use a base level technician, could be easily trained to do the same process and much faster. And I
Wow.
think I think that's a huge advantage. And I
Yeah.
think the other thing that's highlighted from our clinical study, Greg, is that the device has been shown to be much faster than the current processes used. And secondly, we did some work around user preference, and we got an excellent score for user preference. So everybody that's used the device, we win hands down in terms of its usability and what they prefer to work with. So Felix certainly comes up trumps against the current processes that are out there.
Right. And David, also, is it fair to say that even if the product is priced as a premium product compared to everything else on the market, when you think about that productivity pickup of, going from 30 minutes down to 6 minutes, the value add, the net value add to a clinic is huge still.
It is huge, and you can have multiple devices on the desk, Greg. That the footprint is only probably 6 inches by 6 inches, and when
Right.
you compare that with the expensive equipment that you have to buy for normal processes, which is large centrifuges, which is large incubators, I mean the power that's drawn for a start is not even comparable to Felix, but it's just the bench, the foot space that those devices take up, and the cost of purchasing those devices and maintenance of those devices over time all adds up. And I think and I think that's why it's seen as an efficiency because all laboratory processes, especially in IVF, are basically it's a process, and
Right.
and you go from A to Z, and that's it. So the quicker you can do that process, the more samples you get put through, which then it just helps enormously.
Yeah. Right. It goes right to the bottom line. David, it
Exactly.
sounds it sounds fantastic. And also, I know that we don't speak about valuations per se, but can we just talk about a little bit about where your market cap is compared to, say, circa $1 billion total addressable market?
Look, I think at the moment our market cap is quite low.
Right.
And I think the last I looked it was around 11 or something. So,
Yeah.
we're very keen to get that up, and as we are our share price. But I believe that will now happen with the formal announcement of our clinical trial data.
Right.
And I think that will have a huge impact on the share of the company. And I think the other thing that is going to help us significantly, Greg, is the fact that we already have interest from other large companies in taking licensing or partnership, with the Felix device, and we've already got meetings set up with these other companies to go through the data and to get a feel for what they're actually thinking. Um, one company we're actually, and I think we've announced this anyway, so I can speak about it, is Nova, where we've got a letter of intent for the Chinese market.
Right.
And they're currently doing clinical utility testing, and they're pretty happy with the device. There's been no negative feedback, just positives. And again, they're in awe of the efficiency, which is, again, as I alluded to before, they do a lot of samples, and anything that makes it quick is much better. And if we can certainly get that market and get the licensing in there, I think we'll have an excellent return on investment. And I think for our shareholders, and I think that we'll have a revenue stream, and our
That's what we
market
like.
cap and share price will just elevate.
Right.
I think that a few of these things come off for us this year, and we're well positioned for that to happen. Um, I think the company will be very, very valuable.
All right. Hey, David, unfortunately, we have to keep it short here, but it sounds like you are going to be very, very busy for the next 12 months there. Memphasys, any closing comments for anybody that is a prospective investor?
Look, I think that a prospective investor should definitely come and look at us and help us on our journey. We of course need a little bit more runway to get through the registration process. But any investment in the company, I think at this point is a positive one. And because I certainly see that we're well on track. We have a product. It's proven to work, and we're more than happy to get any additional support that we possibly can. Having said that, we truly appreciate the support that all of our long-term shareholders have already given us, which has been fabulous, and we couldn't have done it without them.
Right. David, thank you very much. We will absolutely stay in touch here and good luck.